Are you a long course triathlete, juggling career, family, and social life, but still chasing performance? Still showing up early, grinding out sessions, and chasing PRs? Then this is your podcast. I'm John Mayfield, triathlon coach and athlete, and I've coached hundreds of athletes just like you. Busy professionals with big goals and limited time and no interest in wasting either. Welcome to Tribe Triathlon, your go-to show for everything you need to train smarter, race faster, and fall even more in love with the sport of triathlon. Whether you're self-coached and looking for trusted information, or you've got a coach and just looking for an edge, this show is for you. Every Tuesday, I'll bring you clear, actionable items to help you train more efficiently and race better, to get more out of every training block, every recovery session, and every race. From swimming, cycling, and running to recovery hacks, mental prep to race day execution, you'll leave every episode with something you can use immediately in your next training session or race. There are a lot of triathlon podcasts out there. This one, it's built on real coaching experience, real results, and a real passion for helping athletes like you reach your potential. So if you're ready to train smarter, race faster, and love the process, hit subscribe, and I'll see you every Tuesday.
So I'm sure you've had one of those sessions where you went to the pool only to find out that the pool was closed. So you decided to go home and run, but when you got there, it was raining. So you hopped on your trainer and had just a fantastic session on the bike. That's kind of how today's podcast planning has gone for me. I had a last minute switch for our diving in. And what we're going to talk about in the meat of the podcast today was originally intended to be just like a quick 10 tips list, and it has evolved into something longer. So not exactly what I had planned originally, but I am confident that it's going to be a good one. So for our diving in, as mentioned, this was kind of a last minute interval. I had a phone call this morning with one of my athletes, and we were talking through motivation, accountability, and those sorts of things. And I feel like we just had some really good tidbits that came out of that. So what to do when you don't want to do. I find myself dealing with this. I know there are some athletes who they can go out and do every single session. They look at their training plan, and it is simply a mandatory, obligatory thing that cannot be missed. And it's just part of their routine, and they do every single session, and they never miss one. And they never lack motivation. And as much as I envy those people, that is not me, unfortunately. There are times where I just don't feel like doing a session, or I feel like I'm kind of tired, and it's just not coming easy. So what are the things that we can do to ensure that we get those sessions in, and how can we make it easier for ourselves? So one of my best or favorite tips to give in these scenarios is to commit to the warm-up. So basically, just get started and see where things go. So this allows yourself some grace, and but it also gives yourself a little bit of a test to see, is this just something I was kind of feeling, or is this something that I can overcome, or is this something legit that I need to really pay attention to? So for example, kind of my threshold on the bike is like 20 minutes. If I've got an athlete that says, yeah, I was busy today and I just don't really feel like doing the bike that's on the plan for today, I'll say, get in 20 minutes and see how you feel. And the vast majority of the time, if you get in those initial 20 minutes, the rest of the session is going to be easier. It's going to go well. You're going to find that, in fact, you are able to do that complete session. So just commit to that first 20 minutes or so. Maybe it's 500 yards in the pool. Maybe it's a half mile to a mile on the run, but see how you're feeling, see if that motivation changes. Now, if you do realize that, hey, 20 minutes in, I still feel really bad, or if I've got maybe a cough or something, it's getting worse. If I've got a headache, it's getting worse, or I'm just not feeling it, give yourself some grace, and maybe it's time to shut it down. So it's just about listening to your body, paying attention, and giving yourself grace while still just not giving yourself a pass. And the other thing that I feel is really beneficial, even if you're struggling to get in that initial warm-up, is get set up and get dressed. So this is super easy to do. Your heart rate isn't going to go up hardly at all. But if you set up for whatever session it is that you're going to do, and I really think here specifically like an indoor bike session, get your bike trainer set up. Make your water bottle. If you use a execution platform, go ahead and get your computer in there, pull that up, throw on some cycling bibs, and see what happens next. We joked on the call that you're probably not going to sit around on the couch in your cycling bibs for very long, and you're sure as heck not going to go out in public in those. So get dressed, get everything set up, and see where things go from there. But I'm pretty sure if you try these two things, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to get that session in, and hopefully you'll find that it actually was a really good session. So, what do you do to get motivated? What are those tricks? What are the things you tell yourselves? What are the things that you do that allows you and enables you to get those sessions in when the motivation doesn't come as easy as it does in other sessions? So as I mentioned before, this started off as kind of like a top 10 tip list, and from there it just kind of grew. I couldn't keep it to 10, and I will admit that it's a little here and there. I wouldn't say it's all over the place, but hit certain things, and this is certainly not an all-encompassing list, but if nothing else, these are the things that came to mind to me as I was planning out this episode of the podcast over the last couple of days. So I've entitled this, Do This, Don't Do That. So we'll go through hit, swim, bike, run, and a couple other things along the way. And again, not an all-encompassing list. This is not everything to do and not to do, but these are the things that came to mind as I was writing this episode of the podcast. So hopping right into the swim, do this on the swim. Wear quality goggles. This is one of those things that, fortunately, goggles aren't all that expensive. We're not talking about bikes and race wheels and even carbon-plated shoes kind of money, but a good pair of goggles will cost a little bit more, but they generally have a good lifespan. You're going to be able to wear them for several months, perhaps even several years, and they really are going to pay off both in the training and the racing. Oftentimes, it is necessary or beneficial to have a pair for your training. So you have like your pool goggles that are mostly clear, and then you may need, or probably do need, several pairs for your open water swimming, outdoor swimming, that will depend on the conditions. So whether they're mirrored or dark, depending on which way you're facing on the sun, all those kinds of things will play into it. But make sure you got good quality goggles, and really above all is making sure that those goggles fit, they're comfortable, and they don't leak. So wear quality goggles. Next, have a sleeved and sleeveless wetsuit option. So regardless of where you live, where you train, where you do your open water swimming, those water temperatures vary, and not even necessarily where you're doing your training, but also where you do your racing. So I have done almost all of my triathlon training on the Texas Gulf Coast. The water there tends to stay pretty warm, especially with a sleeve suit. You can swim almost 12 months out of the year. In fact, I just heard from a friend this morning. She's got a lake in her backyard, and the water was like around 60 degrees, and so she's still been able to swim out there. So when it comes time to race specifically, you're going to want to have options, because we've talked about this before when it comes to managing core temperature. So if we are wearing a wetsuit, obviously that water is colder, so we're utilizing that to keep our bodies warm. And depending on what that water temperature is really going to play into how that core temperature is managed. So for example, if the water temperature is around 60 degrees, that's cold water. I put it off as long as possible, but even at 60 degrees, I'm wearing a long sleeve suit. I will wear a sleeveless suit as far into those cold waters as possible, but at a certain point, it's just too cold. I'm going to break down and wear that sleeve suit. For me, it's really about the comfort. It's about the shoulder restriction. Even the best fitting, stretchiest suit is still going to put a little bit of tax on your shoulders. It's going to change your stroke a little bit, whereas you don't necessarily have that with the sleeveless suit. So that's why I prefer a sleeveless suit as long as possible, as far into those low temperatures as I can. But once there's that point, once it gets too cold, I'm going to wear that sleeveless suit. So what I don't want to do is be in a scenario where the water is so cold that I'm going to be uncomfortably cold in a sleeveless suit, and vice versa. I don't want to be stuck wearing a sleeveless suit if the water is, say, 72, because that's going to be too hot. I'm going to overheat. I'm going to set myself back. So it's a great idea to have both a sleeved and sleeveless wetsuit. Get technique feedback. So switching up a little bit here, not necessarily hardware related, but we've talked about this before. Technique and correcting your swim form is the most important, most beneficial thing that you can do to improve your swim. So highly recommend getting technique feedback, whether this is one-on-one with a coach at a pool, whether it is working virtually with a coach. We can do a whole lot with just a little bit of video. And what we can do is point out those things that need to be corrected, give you certain drills that will help you implement these changes and correct over time. So kind of no excuse for just continuing to swim with the technique that you have when it needs to be improved. So definitely do that. Use dry land modalities. So basically, this is continuing to work on both your swim technique and swim strength when you're not in the pool. This is a great substitution when you can't get to a pool. I keep a pair of tubing cables in my suitcase, so whenever I'm on the road, I have no excuse to not get in at least a partial or simulated swim workout. So these are things like the surgical tubing, bands, those sorts of things that allow you to put resistance on your arm. So what it does is it emulates the swim technique while building strength. So you're using those bands, you're building your muscles in that way, but you're doing so in a way that also is going to reinforce proper technique. This is also a great opportunity to work with someone to correct your technique when you are not in the pool, when you're not worried about floating and where's your next breath coming from. There's a lot of really good stuff that can be done on your swim technique when you are not in the pool. Again, it's kind of easier to work on those things. We are moving in air as opposed to water, so we can really feel what it's like. We can get our body in that position, and then once we have learned it there, reinforced it over and over through these dry land drills, we can then implement that, create that muscle memory so that it happens automatically once we get into the pool. This is one of my favorites. Get Foggies. So if you're not familiar, Foggies are little wipes. They kind of look like a wipe that you would get at a restaurant or you would carry with your kids. They come in little single-serve packets, and they are amazing at keeping your goggles from getting fogged up. So that's what they are. It's an anti-fog. You can go old school diver style and spit in your goggles or rely on the anti-fog that comes in it. I've been swimming for a long time, and really neither of those work great. The anti-fog that comes in those goggles, it lasts a couple swims at best. And then the spit trick, it just doesn't really work as advertised. But I will say what does work as advertised are these Foggies wipes. So again, you just kind of open up this little wet wipe kind of thing, wipe the inside of the goggle, and I go hour-long plus master sessions and have no fogging, so they work really well. An additional really high-quality use for these is if you are riding, running in humid conditions, which, again, I did a whole lot of training on the Texas Gulf Coast, almost always super humid, and so something we would have to worry about and deal with is if we had like a visor on our helmet or even our glasses, very susceptible to fogging up. These Foggies actually work really great on those as well. So whether I was training or racing, I will still wipe down my helmet visor, wipe down my glasses with these, and it does a great job of keeping those from fogging up. All right, a couple don't to do on the swim. Don't try to fix your swim by simply swimming more. This is one of those things we talked about in the swim episode. It's not about just doing, it's about doing things right. So if you simply swim more yards with improper technique, all you're going to do is reinforce that improper technique. So it's reinforcing bad behavior, so to speak. What we really want to do here is, again, go back and correct that form, correct the technique, and then only do as much volume as you can do while still maintaining that good and proper technique. With time, as we tire, as we fatigue, inevitably that form is going to break down. So that is really the time that we want to shut it down. We only want to go as far and as long in the pool or in the open water as we can while still maintaining that good and proper technique. Because again, the body knows what it does repeatedly. So if we are going out and spending, say, half the session with degrading and poor technique, that is what the body is going to learn and remember. That is what is going to become that muscle memory. That is what is then going to have to be overcome to make those further corrections down the road. So first step there is to correct the technique. And then once you have that good technique, only do as much as you can do while maintaining. All right, on to transition. Do this. Get a quality transition mat. So lots of people use the towels or different things. Transition mats actually work really well. They're generally neoprene, something like that. And they work just better than a towel or other things that are thrown down on the ground to mark an area or to set your stuff on. They're not expensive. They are super easy to transport. And it's just one of those things. It's a little more pro kind of as you progress through your triathlon career. Quit taking the big old towel and messing with folding it up and all that. Get a good quality transition mat, and that will help just keep things clean, organized. Your neighbors will appreciate it because you're not going to be spilling over into their space. And kind of along those same lines, get a good quality transition bag. So you'll sometimes see people with just a duffel bag and that sort of thing, and it works. But when we are setting up transition, when we are bringing gear for our swim, bike, run, nutrition, recovery, all those things that we are bringing into that transition area, it's easy to forget stuff. It's easy to get things jumbled up. These transition bags do a great job of organizing, and it's better, easier to keep up with everything. It's easier to pack at home to make sure you've got everything. It's easier once you arrive at transition, you're getting everything set up. Most of them are kind of set up with a swim, bike, run compartments so you can know exactly what you've got. And then they've got spaces for your cycling shoes, running shoes, your helmet. So it just works better. And again, it's one of those things, it's definitely on the lower end of expenses when it comes to transition or even triathlon things. So get a good quality transition bag. Don't do this transition version. Don't sit on a bucket. Yes, Jeff, I am talking to you specifically. So Jeff is a buddy I've known for a number of years. I actually checked in with him this morning, and I asked him, what number triathlon are you on? He is on number 443. So Jeff has done 443 transitions, and I think apart from his Ironman, and maybe even his Ironman, maybe he has a bucket in the change tent. Jeff carries in his gear in a Home Depot orange bucket, and he then utilizes that as a seat to sit on in transition. I've been giving Jeff a hard time about this for years, and with 443 transitions, he's obviously doing something right. He knows what he's doing, so that is just to give Jeff a hard time. And kind of funny, all I did was I texted him. I said, "Hey, Jeff, what number are you on?" And he said 443. By the way, great information on the podcast. So he might be changing his opinion after this, but I hope not. Always in good fun there with Jeff. But get efficient with your transitions. Know what you're doing. Be able to get in and get out as quickly as possible, not leaving any time on the table so far as that goes. All right, moving on to the bike. Do this. Replace your chain. This is one of those things I've talked about before. It is definitely on the low end of expenses. Chains are one of those things that wear out relatively quickly, depending on how much training you're doing, how long the rides, how much mileage you're banking. My rule of thumb is I will replace my chain about 2 weeks or so before every big race. So unless they're back to back. But if it's been several months, if I've gone through several months of training, especially a long course race where I'm riding 60, 80, 100 miles on a regular basis, that is going to take a toll on the chain. The chain is going to stretch. It is going to build up grime and that sort of thing. So easiest thing to do is just to replace it to make sure that that chain is as efficient as possible. So that's where we actually lose a lot of our power through drivetrain loss is through the chain. Basically what it's doing is converting that energy that you are creating in the pedals. That energy is moving down the chain into the cassette, which then turns the wheel. So if that chain is if it's not lubricated properly, if it's stretched, you're going to unnecessarily lose wattage as that energy moves from the pedals to the wheels. So this is one of those things. Again, pretty simple. Whether you are having the local bike shop do it, whether you're doing it yourself, replace those chains as needed and as often. I've said this numerous times already on the podcast, and I will. This is kind of one of those hills I will die on. Keep your drivetrain clean. So very similar and definitely hand in hand with this. Even when you have a chain that is in good working condition, it is still important to make sure that the chain, as well as the rest of the drivetrain, are clean and lubricated. So this is a good idea to do pretty much after every outdoor ride or maybe every few outdoor rides, just to wipe down the chain, the cranks, the cassette, all those kinds of things, and then re-oil them, lube them up as needed. If you are using a wax chain, whatever your interval is to re-wax those, make sure that you're staying up on those. Again, just so that all those precious watts that we work so hard to generate aren't going to waste by unnecessary friction and all that is caused by either a dirty drivetrain or a drivetrain that is not properly lubricated. Super easy, super cheap. It's one of those things that there's no excuse. One of my pet peeves, especially in a race, is a squeaky bike. There is nothing that will get me to completely abandon my race plan faster and absolutely drop the wattage and get the heck out of Dodge is if I'm riding next to someone or in the vicinity of someone who has a squeaky bike. It drives me absolutely crazy. And so please, for my benefit at least, don't be that guy. Upgrade your aero helmet. It is largely widely accepted that in most cases, an aero helmet is going to be faster than a standard road helmet. So most triathletes have adopted that and will wear an aero helmet. But I will say over the last several years, and especially throughout the time that I've been in triathlon, aero helmets have come a very long way. They used to be known as very hot. They were also very punitive if your position changed at all. So if you turned your head down at all, and that would put that tail up in the air, or if you sat up at all, they went from being very efficient and aerodynamic to the exact opposite of that. So over time, they have improved. There's been new technology. They're also cooler now. Back in the day, they were notoriously hot. So it was kind of a decision there. It's like, do I want to take advantage of the time savings from wearing an aero helmet, or do I want to make sure that I'm controlling my core temperature as best I can and opt for the road helmet? So come a long way there. And I will say, how do you know whether you need to update your aero helmet? Is it ugly enough? That seems to be the standard for aero helmets. The uglier it is, the more embarrassing it is to wear in front of folks that don't know what we're doing. Probably the more aerodynamic it is. We definitely have the Darth Vader helmets now, and some of these ones that are absolutely ridiculous looking, but we really don't care if they make us go faster, if it gets us to the finish line quicker, if it improves that mile per hour average. We're certainly willing to bite that bullet and wear the most ugly helmet possible. Coincidentally, kind of a side note here, that's generally how I select my running shoes as well. If they are completely ugly, if I would never buy them, never wear them in public, if they weren't the right shoe for me, that's generally how I select the ones, unfortunately, that are best for me. Choose ceramic components. So you don't necessarily need to go out and upgrade all your components to ceramic today, but as either you are building a bike for the first time or once it's time to replace these components, I will say choose ceramic. So there are several things on the bike that have the option of either steel or ceramic. Ceramic is generally more expensive for a couple reasons. One, it is going to be faster out of the box. So it is lower resistance, lower friction in that. So you will have less of that drivetrain loss when using ceramic components as opposed to steel. And then I would say this is probably the biggest advantage is kind of like the chain and the dirty drivetrain. Your ceramic components are going to stay fast longer than your alternative steel components. So right out of the box, those steel components aren't going to be quite as fast as the ceramic. And then over time, with use, with where those steel components are going to wear out faster, as they wear out, that amount of friction is going to increase, and they're going to be less efficient. So they're going to be slower, whereas the ceramic is harder, so it is able to hold up to the rigors that we put it through. So they are going to stay better for longer. So things here are like your bearings, especially like your bottom bracket, your bearings in your wheels, those kinds of things where we're really seeing a lot of friction. Now, things like your head tube don't necessarily need there. That's not going to make us faster or slower unless, I don't know, maybe you're racing crits where you're doing a whole lot of technical turns. But I would say certainly things like your bottom brackets and your wheel bearings, definitely opt for ceramic when it comes time to replace those. And just as a side note, kind of like your train and all these your chain and these other things, it is important to stay up on those things. It is super easy to forget about wheel bearings. It's real easy to forget about bottom brackets until they are in such bad shape that they're getting really noisy or your cranks are sticking, that kind of thing. Once these bearings get to the point where you're really noticing them, whether you're hearing it or noticing a change in performance, you're way past due. So these are things that we want to stay up on. So that's why it's a good idea to take your bike in on a fairly regular basis, have your mechanic look it over. They'll know how long those bearings have been there. They'll also be able to kind of feel and hear, listen to them, and give you a good indication whether those bearings are still in good shape or they need to be replaced. Get a smart trainer. This is one that most folks have come along now and converted to the smart trainer. I will admit that I was a bit of a late adopter. I had ridden a fluid trainer for years and years. I was completely content with it. When smart trainers came out and were all the rage, I really didn't see the benefit of it. And then I finally broke down. I as a coach, I felt like I needed to kind of know what the rage was all about. And I will say it has definitely not necessarily revolutionized my bike training, but it has definitely improved it. There are several benefits to these smart trainers. It improves the accuracy of the training, especially when you're doing a session in erg mode. Basically, all you have to do is pedal, maintain your cadence, and the smart trainer and the app that is controlling it is going to take care of the rest. So we're able to nail those sessions exactly as prescribed, which is obviously of high value. There's also the social aspect to it. I love hopping on Zwift with friends. It's just mentally, it makes the sessions more enjoyable. It's kind of like when we can't ride on the road together. Next best thing is to meet up in Watopia or wherever. So you get that social component of it as well. So big fan of the smart trainer. And what's really great is the price has come down significantly, where when the smart trainers first came out, very limited market, very limited options, and they were expensive. Basically, you were spending well over $1,000 for a smart trainer. But as the competition has increased, as the offerings have increased, technology has come along. Fortunately, they are much more affordable now. There are several options under $500. So basically, whatever budget you have, you're going to be able to find a smart trainer that works for you. Now, this is one that I've also mentioned before. Absolutely do this. Get a professional bike fit. Whether you are buying a bike and getting fit for the first time, or if it's just been a while since you got fit, or perhaps you've never gotten fit. This is going to make a really big difference in your bike performance, in your bike comfort, all these things. Previous episode, we talked about that order of things that we want to prioritize when getting a bike fit. Our top priority is comfort, making sure that we are comfortable and able to maintain that aero position for as long as possible. Because again, if we are sitting up because we are uncomfortable, if we're shifting around because we're uncomfortable, we are going to basically undo any aero advantage we get both from that aerodynamic position as well as all those aerodynamic features of the bike. So we want to make sure that we are comfortable and able to maintain the position that fitter is going to put us in. Next is power generation. We want to be comfortable and then be able to generate as much power as possible. And then the third is aerodynamics. So oftentimes we think that a fit is all about getting as low as possible or as aero as possible. And really it's that tertiary consideration. It's definitely subsequent to the comfort and the power, but obviously something that we want to make sure that we are taking advantage of, because we spend way too much on frames and wheels and goofy looking helmets to not have an aerodynamic fit. But I will say having a professional that not only is a good fitter, but is a good fitter for triathlon is very important. So pretty much any bike shop is going to have someone who they consider their fitter. If you go in and buy a new bike, that's going to be the person that is going to put you in and make some adjustments for you. But I will definitely say the quality of the product that those shops deliver is going to vary greatly. Some are just going to be good enough and get you on, and probably are more designed for your just your everyday rider, your folks that are just riding around the block. But obviously we're looking for a lot more performance out of our bikes. So do your research, and I will say even travel if necessary. I have a fantastic fitter in Houston, Texas, where I spent most of my triathlon career. And I had numerous athletes that would actually fly in to town to get fit with him, and that was the whole trip, was just getting fit with this guy that I trusted emphatically with my own fit, as well as my athletes that I was working with. So get that good professional fit. Do what you need to. Spend some money here, because this is going to be one of those things that we're going to get a return on that investment. So we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on our bikes, wheels, all that. Spend a couple $100 on making sure that fit is going to maximize all that hardware that we're buying. Much cheaper, much simpler. Use latex tubes. Now, this is probably kind of like the Smart Trainer, where I am a little bit behind the times, a little bit resistant to change. I have not yet converted to tubeless. They're great, and if you're using tubeless, fantastic. I will probably get there someday. I was a little slow to convert to disc brakes. Absolutely love those. A little slow for the Smart Trainer, and yeah, I've yet to come around on the tubeless tires. But if you are like me and still shoving tubes into your tires, use latex. So they are a little bit more expensive, just a couple dollars, and you're probably going to have to go maybe a little bit out of your way to find these. So every big box store might have the regular tubes, but the butyl tubes, typically they're the black ones. They're kind of the ones that are everywhere. So you may have to go more like a boutique shop kind of a thing to find these latex tubes. So they are lighter, they have lower rolling resistance, and to be honest, I've heard it before, and I still don't really get how a tube that is inside the tire can increase your performance, make you faster, reduce the friction, reduce that rolling resistance. But apparently it does. So this is one of those things that it's just a couple dollars more than the butyl tubes. For a while, I think people were resistant to using these latex tubes. There was a rumor that they were more prone to punctures. I've been using them for years, ridden thousands of miles, and knock on wood, hardly had any punctures at all, and certainly haven't had a increase in the occurrence of punctures that I have while using those latex tubes. But there are certain things that you look at data and they are objectively better. This is one of those things. So if you are still using tubes, use latex. All right, a couple things not to do on the bike. Don't do this. don't buy a disc wheel. Now, I'm not saying the disc wheels aren't fantastic. I'm not saying they're not fast. I'm not saying they're not sexy, because they are. But what I will say is the return on investment probably isn't there for most of us. Disc wheels generally start around $1,000 and go up from there. It's possible to spend as much as $2,000 or more on a single wheel, and really the marginal benefit of a disc wheel over a quality aero wheel. Obviously, there's a big jump from a standard training wheel to a disc, but if you have an aerodynamic wheel, deeper, 60, 80 millimeters, something like that, the marginal benefit between that wheel and a disc is, for the money, I don't think it's there. Now, if you got $1,500, $2,000 burning a hole in your pocket, and you've already made pretty much every other upgrade that you can, go ahead and buy that wheel. The faster you are riding, the more benefit that you're going to be getting from that disc wheel. They generally say it's somewhere like in the at least 20 miles an hour, if not 22, 23, to really reap the benefits of that wheel. That's one of the reasons we see pros racing disc, because they are riding at that those faster speeds, so they are getting more benefit. The slower you're going, the less benefit that you're going to get out of it. And I will say there are very likely more effective ways to improve aerodynamics, both on the bike and off. And I will say one of the most overlooked things that we can do to improve our aerodynamics is improve our body composition. What I would suggest is, if you've got that $2,000 to spend on that disc wheel, you're probably better off investing that in working with a dietitian or something like that to lose some weight. Most of us are carrying a few extra pounds that are actually increasing our drag, reducing our aerodynamics, and simply losing a few pounds can actually make a bigger impact on the aerodynamics of our overall machine, meaning the bike and the person, than simply adding a disc wheel. So they're great. I rode one for years, but when I did convert over to disc brakes, I didn't feel like it was worth the money to convert to a disc brake disc. So take that as you will. I'm sure that may be one of the more controversial ones, but we're here for it. I don't know if I'll die on that hill, but I'm going to hang out on that hill for quite some time. And then, kind of similar and perhaps even equally controversial or up for conversation, don't buy the top end components. So it's kind of the inverse of the argument for spending the money on ceramic as opposed to steel. Those high end components, and generally what I mean here is like top tier. So this is going to be your Dura Ace with Shimano, Red SRAM, Super Record, is it, with Camignolo? But I will say there, the benefit just isn't there. So I have ridden for years and years Ultegra, which is kind of that mid-grade, and that's what I would really recommend to go kind of best bang for the buck there. Currently, I have the mid-grade SRAM as well, and I will say I've never had a derailleur fail, a shifter fail, anything like that. So generally what you're going to get out of those super high-end components that really are exponentially more expensive, they are marginally more crisp in the shifting, and I will say that probably is a little outdated. That's more when we had mechanical shifting. Now that most things are converting over to electronic shifting, I would imagine that delta between the mid-grade and the high-grade has been reduced even more. The biggest drawback, I would say, other than just the increase in cost, is part of the reason they are more expensive is that they're lighter. They are softer materials to reduce that weight. So kind of the inverse of the ceramic, those high-end components are not going to last as long as those mid-grade components. So not only are they more expensive up front, you're going to need to replace them sooner. So it's going to cost you more for that. So for those reasons, I would say skip on the high end and come hang out with me right there in the middle where, again, thousands of years, lots of years of racing, never had any issues with those mid-grade components. All right, moving on to the run. Do this. Commit to developing aerobic efficiency. This is something we discussed recently on the low intensity training episode. And really, I value this enough to reinforce it here. This is something that everyone should be doing, regardless of your race distance, your performance level. Everyone should be committing to developing this aerobic efficiency. And I say it in that way because this is not necessarily one of those things that just comes natural, that everybody is going to do automatically, nor is it particularly intuitive. We feel like we want to go faster, so we should train fast. We want to go long. We want to race an Ironman distance event, so we naturally are going to do long rides and that sort of thing. What doesn't kind of make sense is if I want to go fast and I want to get as many miles as I can, why would I go slow? But I made a pretty extensive argument for it in that previous podcast. There are numerous benefits to developing this aerobic efficiency, doing that low intensity zone 1, zone 2 racing. And it's hard. It requires patience. This is something that requires months, sometimes even years to really develop. So it does take a certain level of commitment to it, but there is a very large amount of value in that. So commit to developing aerobic efficiency. It's not exclusively on the run. There are great opportunities to develop aerobic efficiency on the bike as well. But I will say most people have a harder time going easy on the run than on the bike. So it is more difficult as well physiologically. Running is more difficult than cycling. So for even a similar effort level, it's going to be more difficult on the run to maintain those lower heart rates, lower intensities. So that's why it's going to take a little bit more commitment on the run as opposed to on the bike. Wear quality socks. This is something that I see a lot of people doing. They'll just, whatever socks they have, whatever socks that are in the drawer, the Walmart socks, that whatever you got for Christmas. But this is one of those things where a good quality pair of socks, not that expensive, but can make a big difference. It's going to make your shoes more comfortable. It's going to reduce the propensity for blisters, which is probably the main reason for this. So I am a huge fan of Swiftwick socks. It's basically the only sock that lives in my sock drawer, and I've got a bunch of them. I've been wearing them for years and years, super happy, love them. I've got the short ones, I've got the tall ones, I've got the crazy patterns, all those. Find what works for you, but it's probably going down to your local run store and finding what they have there. Lots of different options, but find the one that works for you. But I will say, go ahead and make that investment in a good quality pair of socks, or at least a couple pairs of socks to keep up with your volume. Get fit. So this is kind of similar to a professional bike fit, but here it is getting fit for what shoe is going to be right for you. So most of your dedicated run stores, whether they're independent or chain, generally have knowledgeable salespeople that are going to be able to put you through a series of tests, ask you a series of questions, and then offer you several options to consider. So whether you go into one of these stores, it's largely all the same. Some are just on the floor. Some will have a treadmill. They'll watch you walk. They'll watch you run. They'll look for things like pronation. So how do your ankles fall when you walk or when you run? And look at these different things, and they will determine the right shoe for you. Or most often, they will actually give you several options, which is pretty great. They'll bring out 3 or 4 different styles. They'll also measure your foot. It's kind of funny going old school. I remember going into shoe stores when I was a kid, and they would have the sliding thing. And I guess it's because your foot grows so much and changes so much as a kid. Don't really do that much as adults anymore. But it is important to know exactly what size is going to be right for you, both from a length and width standpoint. I have a relatively long foot. I wear size 13s in most shoes, but my foot is narrow. So that is often my challenge, is finding a shoe that accommodates my more narrow foot. But fortunately, I know some great folks at the run store that know exactly what I need. So don't just go out and buy the latest shoe, the coolest looking shoe. Like I said, for me, most often, unfortunately, it's the ugliest shoe. It is the shoe that I was least likely to buy if I were just to go to the store and pick one out. like that fit, it's going to go a very long way in improving your performance and the longevity of your ability. So if you have the wrong shoe, most often it's going to lead to injury. So it's not going to perform as well. It's not going to wear as well or as long. It's going to wear out quicker. But again, the most important thing here is getting the right shoe for you that is going to keep you from injury. And then also important to have session appropriate shoes. So this means having several different pairs of shoes and wearing the ones that are appropriate for the session that you're doing. Most often what we'll see here is like a regular training shoe. This is often the long day as well, the long run shoe. These generally have a little more beef to them. They're a little heavier, but that is in order to provide more stability. That is going to, again, reduce the impact, reduce your risk of injury as you are doing your day-to-day miles and those longer session miles. Then you may have a speed shoe, a track shoe, something like that, that is a little lighter, a little leaner, that is more designed for, say, running on a track, running a 5K, that sort of thing. And then that shoe will often double as your race day shoe, or you may, in fact, have a true race day shoe. But again, you want to make sure that the shoe that you are wearing is appropriate for the session that you're doing, vice versa. The session that you're doing, you want to make sure that you've got a shoe appropriate for that is going to maximize the benefit of that session, as well as ensure that you are reducing your risk of injury as much as possible. And then I'll say, try a super shoe. These have become much more approachable. When these shoes first came out years ago, not only were they super expensive, they were hard to find. You couldn't even get them. Nike kind of flooded the market, or at least put a lot of shoes on the market. It kind of came out of nowhere. Nike was non-existent in triathlon for a long time. And then all of a sudden, they released these carbon-plated super shoes, and all of a sudden, you saw Nikes all over the triathlon course. So they had a little bit of a monopoly on the market initially, but now pretty much every brand of running shoe has a carbon-plated option. So these obviously have that benefit of the carbon plate. Generally, they are very, very light. They're using lighter materials to reduce that weight. And for most people, you can reap benefit from utilizing these super shoes. The faster you are as a runner, the more benefit that you're going to get. And the inverse of that is true. Unfortunately, the slower runners are not going to get quite as much benefit. Very similar to your disc wheel. The faster you're riding, the more benefit you're going to get from that disc. The slower you're riding, less benefit from that. So generally what we see here, kind of twofold with these super shoes. One, they're either going to allow you to run a little bit faster. So kind of like we talked about before with some of these exchange points, you're going to be able to run a little bit faster for the same given effort level. So if you're in your trainer, you may be running, say, a pace of X. If you switch over to a super shoe, it could be a couple percent faster than that. Now, these aren't going to magically drop a minute off your pace or anything like that, but they will make you a little bit faster. Kind of a secondary or even alternative benefit is they are going to reduce impact into your body. So that plate that is in the sole is going to absorb some of that impact that would otherwise be carried up into the body. That impact and energy that is returned up into the body, that is one of the things that causes fatigue. That is one of the main things that causes injury. So as we are able to reduce that, the better off we're going to be. So it may be less about running a faster pace, but more about maintaining a pace for longer, especially if you're in a half marathon or a marathon. You're taking lots and lots of steps, lots of opportunities for that impact to be absorbed up into the body. So even if we are able to reduce the amount of impact by just a 1% margin over the course of a half marathon or a marathon, that is actually going to be, it's going to add up to quite a bit and going to be quite advantageous to reduce that. So multiple benefits of the super shoes. Now they are expensive. They don't last as long. So they can't be all pros. So a couple drawbacks on them as well. All right, on to recovery. Obviously, incredibly important. We will do whole podcast on this, but just a couple things to do. Cold contrast. This is something been around obviously forever, but I will say you've seen it more and more recently. More and more of these places offer cold contrast. Lots of cold plunges are now available. Some of them are portable, so you don't necessarily have to have them hard plumbed into your house. They have ones that are inflatable. You can put them anywhere. They have chillers that you can use just in your bathtub, or you can go super old school and just throw ice in the bath. Or kind of if it's wintertime, right now I did a video a week or so ago and got in my own pool at my building. It was plenty cold. I could feel all those benefits of the cold contrast by just sticking my legs in that. I don't know how cold it was, but it was cold water. So cold contrast is one of those things that is well known, well documented for its benefit, primarily reducing inflation, which in our training we are creating a large amount of inflation. That is inflammation, not inflation. It is the leading cause of injury, of soreness, that sort of thing. So the more we can do to reduce that inflammation, we're going to be less sore. We're going to be able to bounce back quicker and continue to execute high quality sessions. So next is compression boots. These have been around a while. They were like some of these other things real expensive when they first came out. As competition has increased, the price has come down, as it generally does. So lots of good options here. They basically all do the same thing. They basically compress the muscles, basically kind of squeezing the blood out of it so that you circulate more blood, which is going to, again, reduce inflammation, just like the cold contrast, and allow good oxygenated, clean blood to come into those areas that are affected. Massage gun, these are great. These have saved my bacon more than once. I have issues with my IT bands getting really tight. So when I start to feel that knee pain that is associated with tight IT bands, first thing I do is pull out my massage gun. And it's not just about that IT band, it's everything around it. So my glutes, my hamstrings, my quads, my calves, everything, especially on my left side, tends to get tight. And those massage guns do a fantastic job of helping to work out some of that tightness and reduce that risk of injury, pain, discomfort, all those kinds of things. And then probably the cheapest thing out there, this is something I've been using for years and years, is either a lacrosse ball or a golf ball or both. These can be utilized all over the body. It's just another method of massage. I keep a golf ball underneath my desk, and I've been doing this for 15 years or more. And if I'm working there, I'll just slip my shoes off and roll my foot on that golf ball. And one, it feels great, but two, as long course athletes, we're logging a lot of miles. Already talked about all that impact going into our feet, so it's pretty common to have issues with our feet, and we don't even necessarily realize them all immediately in the foot. Sometimes these different pains and discomforts, tightness, can manifest up in the Achilles, the calf, all that. So just keep one of these balls handy, and if you're starting to feel tightness anywhere, just utilize that ball. It's great if you can kind of lay on them, different things. So there's a lot of different things you can do with these. They work really great, and they're just a couple bucks. Chances are you may even have one laying around your house already. All right, on to devices. Do this. Form goggles. These came out a couple of years ago. I will say they are really cool. I have a hard time personally utilizing them in the pool where the water is clear. For me, it's kind of like a vision thing as they're moving. They just don't work for me in the pool, but I will say they are fantastic in open water. My two favorite features, probably three. One is the stroke count. So it works in a way to help you maintain your stroke count. This is something that we often see fall when we go from pool swimming to open water. There is a reduction in stroke rate. So this works as a metronome so that you know your stroke rate, and then it's going to help you be able to maintain that. Additionally, there is a kind of like a compass in there that aids with your open water directional swimming. So what I found is I still need to sight, but this has reduced the amount of frequency that I need to sight. So instead of sighting, say, every 3 to 5 strokes, what I have found is I can utilize this tool and stretch that out to 10, maybe 15, or even 20 strokes. When we are sighting, we are not efficient, not streamlined in the water. We are increasing the amount of drag, so therefore we are swimming slower. So the less frequently that we have to sight, the better off we are. And obviously there's a trade-off there. If you're not utilizing something like this, if you're swimming crooked, you've kind of blown that. So these form goggles are great for that. They also have a timer in there, which I have found is great in long course racing. You always wonder where you're at. So there's a timer in there, which I really appreciate that as well. Gives you a indication of your pace. So it tells you your distance, your time, all those kinds of things. So some really cool data. And for me, they work much better in open water, whereas I don't need them as much in the pool. So mine, I save exclusively for open water swimming. Core body temperature sensor. This is one that I think is really cool. We did a whole episode on maintaining body temperature. That's one of those 4 horsemen of race execution. And until this core body temperature sensor came along, we really didn't have a way of tracking and knowing in real time what our body temperature was. So I'm a big fan of this. It goes right on your heart rate strap, or there's different ways to secure it to your body. It's just a really small little sensor. Doesn't weigh anything, but it connects with your device, and again, it's going to tell you exactly what your core temperature is. So once you are able to calibrate, kind of learn what your body temperature is, what your maximum is, what is that point where you really begin to feel degradation of performance, what temperature is there, then you're able to manage that all the better. As you're out there racing and trying to maintain a certain core temperature, it is certainly advantageous to know what that temperature is. So as you're approaching it, maybe it's increasing your fluid consumption, maybe it's really prioritizing cold fluids at aid stations and that sort of thing. So I feel like this is kind of that next big thing. I feel like core temperature is often a neglected aspect of racing, and I'm really glad to have a core temperature. Stride Run Power Meter. These are really neat. They basically flatten the road. So depending on where you are, what kind of conditions or terrain that you're running in, it may have more or less value. I'm a prime example. As I've already said a couple times, did the vast majority of my training on the Texas Gulf Coast. It is pancake flat, so I never really had to worry about the impact of running uphill or running downhill. Now that I have moved to Nashville, there is not a flat spot anywhere. So I am constantly either running uphill or downhill. So pace becomes a less reliable metric at that point. So basically what this Stride Power Meter is doing is converting that effort into a power number similar to the way a bike power meter works. It's not exactly the same. It's a calculated power as opposed to a measured power on the bike. But again, it's going to flatten the course. So whether I'm running uphill, running downhill, running on a flat, I can maintain the same wattage, and that is going to help me identify and objectively measure my intensity, whereas pace is going to be all over the place in that case. I will say the biggest benefit that the Stride had when I was living in the flatlands was it connects with devices like or softwares like Zwift as a foot pod. So you're able to get much more accurate pacing information when you're utilizing that on a treadmill. Treadmills are notoriously inaccurate on pace, but when you use the Stride, it actually is going to do a very good job of converting that effort into an accurate pace. So is it going to improve the reliability there? It enables you to use Zwift on a treadmill, which for me, that's worth it on its own. And Oura Ring. This is something I'm a big fan of. I wear one. It kind of doubles as my wedding band. And it's kind of funny. My wife has one as well. And this is one of the things that we do like first thing in the morning when we wake up is like we look at our sleep score as measured and quantified by the Oura Ring. And it's like a competition, like who slept better. And kind of funny thing is it's like almost like we're playing defense because oftentimes when we don't sleep well, it's because of the other person. But these rings and there are other wearables that quantify different things within the body. It's crazy the amount of things that just this little ring can measure and quantify, and really provide us some good information as to how well we're sleeping, how well we're recovering. Do we have a illness potentially coming on? It tracks things like changes in body temperature. It can even predict illness. So I've had those before. It's like there's some things that the ring is measuring. You may be getting sick, so maybe it's time to be a little proactive in that. So just some really cool stuff that these rings and other devices, even watches now, are getting better. I think especially the Apple Watch is quantifying and measuring similar metrics to what the Oura Ring is doing. So some great information there on these. Now, as far as devices don't do, I will say don't necessarily upgrade to the latest watch. I will say now it's I feel like we've arrived at a point where our watches are doing a really great job. They're really doing everything that we need them to. So I don't know that we necessarily need to be upgrading as frequently. I go all the way back. My first Garmin was a 305. It was not waterproof, so obviously it didn't work for swimming. You couldn't wear it in the swim on a triathlon in a race, and it was like a laptop strapped to your wrist. And from there, they've just gotten better and better. They became waterproof. They started giving swim metrics. We used to have to plug those into the computer. They switched to Bluetooth, and now they have optical heart rate and all sorts of things. So they are really good, but they're also really expensive. I was shocked the last time I priced out a Garmin watch. It was double, if not triple, of what I paid just a couple of years ago for a model that is not necessarily the latest and greatest, but it still does absolutely everything that I need it to do. So if you need a new watch, absolutely go for it. But just because a new one comes out, I would say check those features and see, is it worth it to you? Are you really getting enough value out of that spend with whatever that new watch is going to offer? And finally, my tip, hire a coach. All these things that we've discussed are great opportunities to discuss with the coach. They're going to be able to offer feedback, objective feedback that is going to allow you to continue to train for performance, stay healthy, reduce your risk of injury, all those things. So one final thing to do is hire a coach. So that is it for today. I hope these have been fun and enjoyable, some benefits, maybe even a little controversial. So obviously let me know. Please reach out. Where do you disagree with me? Where am I wrong on some of these things to do and some of these things not to do?